We would like to begin the press conference by the Prime Minister of Japan. The Prime Minister Kishida has an initial speech. With that, floor is yours. Yes, today, 150-day period diet session ended. All the while, looking at the world and also in Japan, there are various events. One by one, we took it seriously. And also we tried to realize the policies we committed to, and we faced those policies head on. We submitted the budgets, and also there were 60 cabinet bills in the diet session, of which 58 were enacted. And looking at the historical ordinary diet session over the past 10 years in a higher level, we are able to have the sound results. I would like to appreciate the cooperation I gained from the parties involved. With the diet session closed, taking this opportunity, let me share what I have valued as a Prime Minister of Japan in one-by-one policy and also in running government in the first half of this year. Currently, we are facing once-in-a-decade difficult challenges, and those events happens and will happen in a combination, and we are in the midst of that. Even back in the G7 Hiroshima summit, the many leaders all talked about the inflection points and compound crises. Given the current environment, over the past 6 months, I valued two ideas. Number one, the passion and thoughts for economic growth, and the second is my passion to enhance initiatives for diplomatic security. I start with number one. Over the past 3 decades, there were a deflationary economy, cost-cut economy. We had to exit from that economies, and we have to build the growth economy by investing to the future. And we have to have a sound path for the economy where the wage hike comes no surprise. We can never miss this opportunity. Under my administration, I took office 2 years ago, and ever since then, we upheld the new form of capitalism, and we valued the investment for the people, including wage hike, and also promoting capital expenditures and promoting investment on R&D by cooperating between the governments and private sectors. And these are two pillars as a basic stance. And with that, we delivered execution plan of the new form of capitalism and a 5-year plan of startup development, and also plan to double the asset income. And we also showed the guide of the labor markets reform with a 3 parts reform, and such as specific policies have been implemented to date with any mishaps, especially over the past 6 months, was the very critical juncture and crucial place whether we can initiate a virtuous cycle of economy. And that's a strong passion I had, and that's why we started first time in 8 years to exchange opinions, places and meetings among the government, labor union, and the businesses. And then we have reached out to various stakeholders towards the virtuous cycle of economy. And we try to make sure the labor costs of the SMEs can be passed through smoothly to the major and big companies, and we try to utilize the monitoring functions of Fair Trade Commission to the fullest, and we are taking various actions powerfully on the pass-through countermeasures. And because of these government responses, we are seeing that the higher level of the wage hike for the first time in 30 years of 3.66% overall, and 3.36% of the SME's wage hike, and domestic investment over 100 trillion yen, and also the more willingness to invest by businesses and Also, the share prices hit a record high over the past 33 years. So these are the elements we are seeing as a positive move across the Japanese economy. That said, we are facing energy and food prices inflation across the globe. Many of you may think that wage hike has not been enough, and my life has never become easier. But the key here, we believe, is the structural wage hike, which shouldn't be the one-off. We have to have a reskilling that has to have a fits with the new age. And also we have to introduce the job-based wages in Japan type, and also the smooth labor shift to the growth area. That's the three-part reform that we have to proceed so that we're able to realize structural wage hike. As far as minimum wages are concerned, this year we would like to hit the national weighted average of the 1,000 yen, and we would like to hold the minimum wage council that comprise of the governments, the labor unions, and businesses, and the sound discussion should take place there. And this summer and beyond, we would like to continue to see the wage hike continuously. So even after we hit the 1,000 yen mark, we have shown the policy, we would like to show the policy, and that requires discussion. And at the same time, we would like to soften the shock from the pricing inflation, so we have delivered the benefits for the households with no inheritance tax, and also we have delivered and rolled out the alleviation measures for gasoline, power, gas prices. We have taken such unprecedented countermeasures to date. An international crude oil gas market started with trunk oil, but we continued to watch the trend over there, and we continued to stand in the eyes of the general public, and we continue to take a response for that. Let me state this once again. Exits from deflationary economy and the economy where the wage hike comes no surprise. That's the economy we have to see, and we have to have a sound path forward for that. So we would like to mobilize various policies for this target. We are able to build a foundation in the diet session this time, so based on which we would like to take on various challenges head-on as follows. Number 1, we would like to reinforce various initiatives towards and to prop up the domestic investment. Looking at the globe, for example, in the GX area, we are seeing very bold, unprecedented policies rolled out by the governments. Here in Japan, we would like to realize the GX investment worth over 150 trillion yen. For the sake of that vision, we are able to enact the two GX bills in that diet session. Under this act, we have to develop the hydrogen energy use infrastructure. That's the area we can play to strengthen Japan, and also we want to roll out the supporting system that putting the heat to the pricing gap between the hydrogen and the fossil fuel. And for the sake of that, we would like to develop the necessary legislations apace. Also, one thing to note here is perovskite solar battery, which can be installed on the wall of the public infrastructures and building, and also new technologies launched by Japan, and those are something we would like to boost strongly, and so that we are able to, we would like to proceed the cooperation with European countries and the United States and Asian countries to permeate those technologies and setting standards. And obviously, the investment doesn't stop in the GX area, namely semiconductors, biofusion energy, AI. In the various areas, such as budget, tax system, and regulations, we would like to create investment supporting package that can be competing against other world towards the end of the year. And also in the tourism and inbound towards 2025, we would like to make sure thing of the V-shaped turnaround of tourists. So based on the New Era Inbound Expansion Action Plan, we would like to scale up of the market size of the business, education, research, and cultural arts and sports. In farming fisheries sector, we would like to establish food security. We formulated the new development direction. Moving forward, we would like to accelerate the work to revise the Food, Agriculture, Farming Villages Basis Act, which is Agricultural Administration Constitution, so that we will like to change and convert the agricultural administration and prop up the investments. Next, the Reiwa Digital Administrative Financial Reform, the utilizing digital power to the fullest. Falling birth rate in aging society, decarbonization, change of security situation. We need to respond to that, the new change of environment. So the operation scale and size of governments around the world have been expanded to date. Without increasing total number of public servants, we have to deliver convenient, easy to use, and efficient administration services for the general public, and such a reform will be and has been indispensable. What's been in demand across the world is the lean organization yet covered whole range of the functions, that is small yet big government. We have to convert the scheme, which is the top-down, putting the central government at the top, to the one which supporting the local governments by the central government with the digital. The central government has to design the digital infrastructure, common digital infrastructure, and on which the local governments and NPO, which have the direct touch points with the residents and companies who will deliver the meticulous services to one by one at pace. Digital technologies were not available in the Showa era, and in such days, administrative reforms were just spelling in the restructuring of the governments and privatization and the decentralization. But what's been in need of the change in the Reiwa era is that utilizing the digital power to the fullest, and also we have to have a drastic reform, putting the first priority to the needs of the each general public and individual level. To do that, we have to change the systems and organization in an integrated way in the eyes of the users, and we have to redefine the roles of the governments and local governments. And as the priority of the government, we would like to challenge the Reiwa Digital and Administrative Financial Reform.
What comes out here is digital society's passports, namely my numbers or individual numbers and individual numbers cards. In this session, we were able to pass the revised act on individual numbers. This is to promote digital passports. As for my number cards and my numbers, this week, with regards to health insurance certificates and pension information and disability certificates, on these fronts, we observed checkup errors for privacy information, and there was also mislinkage with my numbers as well. So we take such a situation seriously, and today, within the government, we set up a general checkup headquarters for individual number information, digital agency in charge of my number system, and Health and Welfare Ministry, which has a lot of information in scope, and MIC, who is responsible for liaison activities with local municipalities, so they will spearhead strongly the prevention of such incidents going forward and check up as well in order to remove people's concerns on a par with COVID-19 measures. The government will take measures across the board, and such instruction was given by me. And regarding the three following points, I also gave an instruction to Minister Kono and relevant ministers. Number one, concerning the procedures for individual numbers, holistic checkup needs to be done. A series of erroneous data, and beyond this, given the significance of private and personal information, all the data which are accessible with minor portal by the end of autumn this year, there will be a holistic checkup. Number 2, we need to prevent the similar errors from occurring, so we need to check up individual numbers, and we also need to integrate holistically the procedure for checking up the 4 pieces of information: names, addresses, gender, and birth rates. So cabinet ordinances with regards to registration of my numbers will be done by this autumn. Number 3, next autumn there will be a termination of insurance cards, and people are concerned, which we take seriously. And regarding the current total elimination of the current certificates will be done based on a big premise that we will be able to alleviate people's concerns. Next autumn, we are trying to discard this system. However, as stipulated in the law, up to 1 year, up to the autumn of 2025, we will be giving a gracious period. People will be able to use the current certificates, and by using this time, we will try to eliminate people's concerns. In order to transition to the digital society, we have to gain people's trust. As soon as possible, we need to regain the trust from the people of Japan. So across the government, we will take initiatives. The third area is how to respond to dropping birth rate and then also aging society and dropping population. By 2030, we will have a last opportunity for turning around the trends of dropping birth rate. As I said previously in the previous session, with an unwavering determination, we will carry out economic growth measures and dropping birth rate measures in a speedy manner. On top of that, we will try to also provide empowerment to women and the elderly. Now we are having the shrinking population for female workers and the elderly. We have to energize them, which is quite important. Previously, we compiled a reform policy outline for women for 2023. We need to establish the environment for women to be able to flexibly work in various manners in line with their life plans. We need to also correct the gender wage gaps, and we also eliminate so-called L-shaped gap. We also need to devote all our energy to promotion of adoption by companies. And especially dementia is an imminent issue for people, especially for the elderly and family members and Japanese people as a whole. Across the government, we have to make sure that this is addressed without being put on the back burner. So there was the passage of the basic acts on dementia this month, and as a new national project, we will address this matter. So I just talked about my determination for economic growth, which I valued a lot for the first half of this year. Next, I'd like to talk about the second area that was quite of importance to me. For the first half, it was my determination for diplomacy and security initiatives, which means we need to raise our presence as Japan in the international society. We need to thoroughly protect people's security and lives. Currently, around the world, we are observing a situation where UNSC's permanent members military invasion of its neighbor, such unexpected incident is happening. North Korea fired ballistic missiles with more frequency, and the nature is also becoming more serious as well. National security around Japan is becoming the more severe and complicated since World War II and its end. Ukraine might become tomorrow's East Asia with such strong sense of urgency. I visited Ukraine on 21st of March. And together with Mr. Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, we appealed to the international society a message that the changing the status quo by force should never be tolerated. In May, we also held a Hiroshima summit for G7 as a chair country, and pacifist nation Japan's determination and willingness was disseminated across the world. We exercised our presence as a G7 nation, and on top of the engagement with Global South and solidarity with Ukraine, and the way that the international society, such strong message was communicated. Beyond G7, we were able to also have a consensus with each nation, which was invited from each region, about free, open international order based on the rule of law. We need to ensure the maintenance and the solidification of that, and we'd like to also move forward with a diplomacy that can promote our national interest. And if everything is allowed, or every situation is allowed next month, because I'm invited to the NATO summit meeting in Lithuania, so I will attend it, and I will be having a Japan-EU summit meeting in Belgium, and later on I will be visiting 3 nations including Saudi Arabia and UAE and Qatar in the Middle East. And from the autumn and onward, there will be a G20 New Delhi summit and the UN General Assembly, APEC summit meeting, and special summit meeting between Japan and ASEAN. So including Global South, we will have a lot of opportunities to liaise with international partners. And with China, constructive and stable relations should be established through mutual efforts. In order to make it happen, including myself, at all different levels, we will closely communicate with China. Furthermore, with North Korea, we'd like to realize early on the summit meeting, so under my leadership at high level, consultations should take place. For addressing the abduction issue with utmost efforts, we will determinedly take actions. We will leverage all diplomatic options and cards, and we will contribute to the peace and stability of the international community. And in the most suited manner for Japan, we will try to maintain and solidify the international order. And for the rolling out of proactive diplomatic activities, the underpinning factor is defense capabilities build up, which is also important. Since 2 years ago, we have had a conversation around defense build up. Over 5 years, 43 trillion yen for budget for defense will be earmarked, and we had a passage of the bill for solidification of the industry in question in the session which just ended. So with a strong determination, we will try to protect our nation and people from every situation. So the Kishida administration will try to deliver results for imminent issues one by one. So therefore, I myself, this year's summer, once again, I'd like to go back to the starting point of our administration and the politician Fumio Kishida. As much as possible, I will try to visit fields around Japan, and we will listen to people's voices. Without a belief, things will not be realized. This is what I have said when I ran for the LDP's presidential election in August 2 years ago. With that in mind, I'd like to devote all my energy to running the administration for the second half of this year. Lastly, we will have a season where we will have lots of severe natural disasters. And recently, we have a tendency of having more severe and frequent natural disasters. So therefore, based on the government and the municipalities' information, I'd like people to act. As for the Japanese government, we will do our utmost for notification of the linear rain band early on and advanced release of the dam so that we can make our nation resilient and for disaster prevention and reductions. So for me, thank you very much.
それではこれからプレスの皆さん
With that, we'd like to open the floor for questions. Should you have any questions, please raise a hand, and if you're given a go, please approach the closest mic and please state your name and affiliations. Please limit your question to one. With that, leading press. Akiyama-san from Nikkei newspaper.
日経新聞
This is Akiyama from Nikkei newspaper. Thank you. My question is on the trouble and issues around the individual number card, and you said you tried to have a checkup and countermeasures against the recurrence. You explained that. But 2024 autumn, you will scrap the health insurance card, and there were various voices that were objecting to that. How would you like to address this? And also, there are various talks around the dissolution of the lower house, and why did you forgo that opportunity, and what will be the elements that you would like to incorporate in executing that? And also, with the stint ending for the executives of LDP, where and when would you like to do the reshuffling of the cabinet and make personnel decisions for the executives? And how would you like to see the treatment of the Secretary General, Mr. Motegi? Thank you. First, let me address on the first question of the individual number card. There are a series of the issues around the individual number card and the wrong linkages of that. We would like to take it seriously. Today, we set up the individual number card information general checkup headquarters within the government. And across the government, we try to do the checkup of all the data that's been viewable on the minor portal, and also that we try to create the scheme not to see the recurrence of the same incidents, and also we need to have a careful responses to dispel concerns and anxieties of general public, and we decided to promote this in a powerful way. Also, we would like to combine this individual number card with the health insurance card. And given that we will scrap the health insurance card next year's autumn, and obviously we take the concerns and anxieties of general public seriously, and we said that we will scrap the health insurance card altogether. But basically, the basic assumption is that we alleviate all and dispel all the anxieties and concerns of general public. And also, we need to have a checkup of the data and the correction works and smoothing of the consultation centers and how to handle the burden of the consultation centers. And we need to develop those environment to check the qualification and IDs and individual number card. Now, we have to realize and promote the digitalization that has come to the fore as issues very clearly amid the COVID-19 pandemic response. And we need to realize high-quality medical services based on the seeing doctor history and the record. And in order to realize that such effective, sustainable medical services, we need to move to the ICTIP health insurance card system with scrapping the current health insurance card. And you asked the question on the dissolution and the cabinet reshuffle and personal decisions to the executives. The other day, I guess it was 13th this month, there was a press conference. And I was asked about the dissolution back then. And I said, in this administration, our mission is to find out the answers against the difficult challenges that has been postponed for long, and that's how I committed to this and running the government. As far as the dissolution and the general elections are concerned, we would like to basically value this basic stance to respond to this and judge and comprehensively of the situations. And there was a various move around the submission of the no confidence motion by part of the opposition parties, the end of the Diet session. And back then, there was a very much uncertainties around the enactment of the Financial Resources Securing Act in order to drastically reinforce the defense capability. That's why we would like to assess the situation at the Diet session. But on the 15th, we judged that there was a good signs of enacting the Financial Resources Securing Act, and on a consistent basis, I continue to say that we do not think about the dissolution of the Diet session, and immediately we will reject the no confidence motion if submitted. That is the basic stance we have upheld today. That's the instructions I sent to the Secretary General. Also, you asked the question of the dissolution and the personal decisions for the executives, but we judge in view of the basic stance of the Kishida government, meaning that we have to identify the answers against the very difficult challenges that have been postponed to date, and that is something that we have to do now. There is nothing that we can say beyond that, but based on the basic stance, we would like to consider that matters as you raise as questions.
じゃあ篠原さん。
Next, Shinohara-san, from a leading media outlet, TV Tokyo. Shinohara, thank you very much. So in the beginning, there was a mention, so let me just confirm on what was said about the termination of the health insurance card. So 1 year, up to 1 year gracious period will be used for alleviating people's concerns. However, next autumn, termination of the card in question. So such premise or for health insurance card will not change, is that right? And during your tenure, you'd like to change the constitution. However, previously, LDP's member, Ms. Kamikawa, said that next year, September is not in their assumption or her assumption. So you'd like to change or revise the constitution not by September next year, but you're also considering the second administration in mind, is that right? Regarding the first point about my number or individual numbers, like I said before, the integration was the health insurance certificate, and next autumn is going to be the period where moving forward with all the procedures. And we need to alleviate people's anxieties, so completion of such work is going to be a big premise, like I said before. So traditional approach, and based on such an approach, we will implement what we ought to do. And regarding the second point, about the constitutional revision, so you'd like to ask about the timeline. As for the LDP's presidential election, I said during my tenure as a president of the LDP, I'd like to realize such a plan. And during such an election, I said I'd like to complete such a project and make efforts to make it happen. So that's what I have said right before the election. That's all.
それではこれから
With that, I would like to open the floor for questions other than the leading press. Go ahead. My name is Hiramoto from Japan TV. Let me check with your initial statement. And going back to where you started, that's what I think that you said, listen to the voices of general public. In the press conference, you said that. Does that mean that you are saying the current situations that you have to go back to where you started because you can't really listen to the voices of general public? Is that it? And also in today's press conference, you talk a lot about what's been like in the first half, but how do you see the outlook of the second half? In the first half, the unprecedented, the falling birth rate countermeasures in G7 summit, there are various policy challenges that goes on over the past 6 months. In the second half, what on earth in a Kishida administration, what do you value and identify challenges and solve them? And are there any strategies in the first place for that? Thank you. Well, to your first question, listening to the general public voices. Ever since I took office, I valued that, namely listening to the voices of general public. While listening to the voices, at the same time, we have to make decisions and policy challenges. In order to deliver results, we have to make decisions. That is all repetitions all the while. Listening to the voices of general public, which is important, and also difficulties around making decisions. One after another, I feel that difficulties and importance every day, all the while. Now, with the diet session closed, and we started to see the second half this year, the listening to the voice of general public, I believe, which is something that I started in the first place. We need to commit it to it once again, and we have to address the challenges that cannot be postponed any longer. And we have to deliver results one by one, and such initiatives need to be continued. And I echo that my passion once again here. And to your second question, the way I talk might not have been enough, but together with the first half, looking toward the second half, there are challenges we have to face. And I believe I laid out those issues towards the second half. That we are able to build a foundation in the session, and that we would like to address the challenges as follows, I said. And the one thing is domestic investment. And we would like to proceed initiatives towards domestic investment, and also the administrative financial reform, the Reiwa version, that's the second thing, and also the child and child-rearing policies. And we are able to show the big chunk of it within the economic fiscal policy, but we have to execute it. That's another area we have to make an effort of. In addition, women and elderly have to play an active role in a society. That kind of environment has to be put in place. And also, the huge area of interest is dementia, and we have to work on it. As a national project, we have to work on that issue. I believe that we will work on these issues in second half, I think. I think I said it in a speech. So we would like to sort it out, those issues, and we would like to comment on your question. Thank you. Suzuki-san.
Kyoto Suzuki. About the cabinet reshuffle and the executive posts, so you'd like to refer to the basic policies. However, just like the previous time, so you will be sticking to the current framework, is that right? And people are infected by inflation. In order to help such people, and from structural reform perspective, are you considering the comparison of supplementary budget? First of all, regarding the executive posts, I have a question. You asked a question currently regarding the timing for executive posts, etc. I have no concrete plans that I have in mind. So therefore, on a continuous basis, like I have said before, we will focus on different policy challenges that we cannot wait. So we will be focused on this area, and depending on the progress of such, in order to deliver further results, what kind of structure will be needed for personal affairs. So that's going to be the order. So whether or not we will be sticking to the current framework, first of all, we'd like to deliver tangible results by proceeding with policies. And in order to make it happen, what kind of organization will be needed? So that's going to be the thought process. So regarding the contents of the organization or the executive post, etc., there's nothing that I can share right now. So I'd like to consider this matter thoroughly by implementing the policies. And regarding the supplementary budget, you asked the question whether it's an option. Again, regarding the supplementary budget, there is no specific plan. So that depends on economic situation and how inflation will transpire and people's lives and their operators and businesses' activities. So I have to really look at each individual trend. So wherever necessary, actions need to be taken. With such a thought process, whether or not supplementary budget needs to be considered. At any rate, since 2 years ago, various measures were staged or conducted for economic activities and inflation and others. So we are now in the process of executing all these. So we will look at the benefits and effects of such measures, and the energy or the international energy market is also evolving as well in a drastic manner. So therefore, we'd like to discern what's happening in this area to take or make a decision whether or not we need to compile a supplementary budget. First of all, we have various economic measures that we need to exercise thoroughly, and I would like to focus my energy on designing what's happening. And then about the supplementary budget, I'd like to make a decision afterwards.
Nindibaj, go ahead. My name is Nindibaj from Japan Times. Thank you. My question is on the Ukraine war conflicts, and ever since then, Japan is in lockstep with the G7 members, and the economic and humanitarian aid have been delivered to Ukraine. But at the same time, the conflict has been elongated now, and in order to find out the peace, what other role do you want to play? There are various pending issues between Japan and Russia, and based on which, what kind of the initiative you would like to reach out to Russia? Thank you. Well, as you said, the Ukraine aggression by Russia has occurred, and G7 and partners and Japan have worked together, and strong sanctions against Russia have been conducted together with the support for Ukraine. But as you asked the question, what kind of the role can Japan play in order to realize peace? To your question, basically, Ukraine suffered from aggression, and they trying very hard to protect their motherlands, and conditions over the peace and timing of it. Those are the elements. Those are the elements that should be decided by the Ukraine and others, and we cannot make decisions without Ukraine. It's very important to stop the aggression by Russia first, but the thoughts and thinking by Ukrainian people, that's something we try to see and consider while trying to seek out the way out for the peace. various countries and parties involved have submitted and proposed towards the peace, and what's in the proposals have to be respectful for the will and intent of the Ukrainian people to realize how the peace should be. That is an important stance, I think. And every stage, Japan has to contribute in view of these various variables. And towards this year, Japan continues to serve as a presidency of the Group of Seven, so we have to take the leadership and lead the discussions among the G7. And one more, the reaching out and outreach to Russia as a second question. Well, as far as the relations with Russia are concerned, we need to be assertive on the aggression on Ukraine by Russia, which is important. But at the same time, fishery and economic activities, those are the issues to be addressed by the two countries because we are neighboring countries. And diplomatic as a whole, what is serving as a national interest? That is an important perspective we cannot forget, and we would like to accordingly act. With the Northern Territories issues, we have to resolve these issues and conclude the peace treaty, that we continue to uphold that stance.
次に、
Next, Yokoyama-san. Blumia Park, Yokoyama. Sir, as part of your mention, there was a diplomacy issue, and this month, Anthony Blinken had a meeting with Mr. Xi Jinping of China, and there seems to be a positive momentum, and especially between Japan and China. How do you think that should be? And Prime Minister yourself, in the near future, you'd like to consider a visit to China, is that right? First of all, between China and the United States, stabilization of bilateral relations is quite an important factor for the international society. And regarding how I should consider bilateral relations in between, first of all, when it comes to the Japan-US relations, our alliance is the linchpin for peace and stability of the Indo-Pacific region, with President Biden repeatedly beyond national security and economies at all different levels. We confirm that we will solidify our multi-layered cooperation. And about the Japan-China relations, last November, there was a bilateral meeting with Mr. Xi Jinping at a summit level in between. So Japan-China relations should be forward-looking in order to move it forward with a positive momentum. That's what I felt. So we'd like to really maintain such a positive momentum, and Japan needs to at the same time say whatever we have to say, and we need to act on China or call on China to responsibly act. We will also repeat our conversations on common issues like climate change, etc. We will cooperate, so such constructive and stable relations should be established through mutual efforts. So that's the basic policy that I have. And regarding my visit to China, nothing has been decided at this juncture. However, like I have said before, on a continuous basis, including myself at all different levels, we'd like to closely communicate with China, which is important. As part of that, regarding my visit to China, I'd like to consider such a visit. And under a strong relations of trust with the United States, that is ally for Japan, I will also request China to responsibly act as a major power. So that's our basic approach as Japan. That's all from me.
大変恐縮ですが、
I'm afraid we have diplomatic schedules following this. Let me limit the two questions. Let me limit your questions to two. Nanao-san, go ahead. This is Nanao from Nico Nico. Thank you. My question is on the abduction issues and the resumption of the negotiation with North Korea. Back on 27th of May, you mentioned on a high-level meeting for the first time, but on the 29th, in response to it, I think, the Vice Minister of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of North Korea released the statement. As you said at the very outset, that you have made a surprise visit to Ukraine and the G7 Hiroshima summit inviting President Zelensky, and you were able to realize those events. But once again, could you please lay out once again of your commitment to realize the summit between Japan and North Korea, to realize the abduction issues, and how do you see the feasibilities? Is it possible to give us the in-depth comments around it? Thank you. Conventionally, as I stated, the importance of dialogue has been highlighted from Japan, and we continue to try to reach out. We continue to make that effort. And as far as the response to North Korea is concerned, as I stated, based on the Japan-North Korea Pyongyang declaration, abduction issues, nuclear missile issues, and these are the various issues we have to resolve comprehensively, and we have to settle the unfortunate past and to realize the normalization of the diplomatic relations between the two countries. In particular, we are seeing the aging of the families of the victims of the abductees, and these are the time constraint issues, and this is a human rights issues. We continue to try to realize to bring all the abductees back to Japan as soon as possible, and we try to have a courage to work on that. And therefore, we would like to resolve the pending issues between the two countries and carve out a new era between the two countries. That's the commitment that we have to continue to deliver to the Chairman Kim in various opportunities. And we would like to realize, I would like to realize the summit meeting earlier on. We would like to have a high-level meeting underneath me. This is also subject to the counterpart. But given that policy I lay out, I would like to work on this issue. That is everything I can lay out today.
石井さん。
Ishii-san. Hokkaido newspaper. My name is Ishii. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask about the semiconductor issue. So the next generation semiconductor needs to be nationalized, and Lapidus in Hokkaido, 330 billion yen investment was decided. And under digital strategy, what kind of expectations do you have with Hokkaido? And there will be a significant investment, and there was a big initiative which was failed in the past. How do you see this? Regarding the next generation semicon for AI and autonomous driving, this is going to be a key technology that underpins the next generation digital technologies. And beyond solidification of industrial competitiveness for GX and economic security, for these purposes, the cutting-edge semicon technologies and the industrial base needs to be secured inside of a country. On the other hand, like you mentioned about the fast failure in the past with regards to the semicon industrial policies, we focused our energy on supporting research and development. However, there was insufficiency around mass production efforts. And many overseas countries progressively invested and supported investment. However, there wasn't such a sufficient policy in the past, and strategic global collaboration, such a perspective was also lacking, according to what some people say. And there are many points that we have to reflect upon. And this time, concerning the next generation semicon project with Lapidus, under the global collaboration with the United States and Europe, we are also envisioning mass production process as well. So we will check up our progress, and based on lessons learned in the past, we'd like to take measures we'd like to support in an adequate manner as a Japanese government. And Hokkaido, where Lapidus company is headquartered, it has a lot of nature and has a wide and land as well. And just like Silicon Valley, which has a big potential, this has a big potential that can invite a lot of researchers from around the world. And from economic security resilience perspectives, the geographical priority and the superiority is quite there. So with a Lapidus project from inside of Japan and to Hokkaido, we would like to see accumulation of digital industries for cutting-edge semicon-related businesses. And we'd like to provide support as necessary. This concludes our press conference, and regarding the people who are raising their hands, let us know by email, and we will give you an answer in writing. Thank you very much.